Hi guys, as you can see I've got a load of sprues on my desk and I basically thought it's about time I made something with them. And this time, rather than make something just for the sake of making something, I'm actually going to make something that I'm going to use, which is quite rare. So here it is, it's an Ork Dice Tower, and for anyone who doesn't know quite what that means, well basically you use it to roll dice. So yeah, you put the dice in at the top, obviously there's a few little layers it goes through, and then they come down the bottom. And I made these little bits at the top that obviously I can put some sort of like orc figures, and as you can see here, good old lonely orc. I've not had him used in the video for quite some time. In fact, he wasn't even sitting on my desk, he was hidden away in some drawer. So yeah, dice go in the top, they go through a couple of layers, that shakes them up, and obviously they come out down the bottom. Which is pretty awesome, because obviously this can be used for any kind of tabletop gaming, Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer, yeah, anything that requires dice. So to make this epic tower, we start off with, well, obviously good old Uncle Ben's chili con carne paste. Obviously, goes without saying really. So yeah, get yourself one of these jars. Obviously don't really need the contents. It is purely the jar we need. So we can make some good old ooey gooey sprue stuff. So mixing in the old acetone. If you guys want to wear gloves by all means, but I generally don't spill this stuff, he says, fingers crossed. So yes, obviously I'm not using gloves. And then grabbing all those lovely sprues. I've still got several boxes of these guys. I'm still getting requests from you guys to send them in to me, which I think is awesome. But at the moment I've still got several large boxes, so don't really need any more just yet. So generally I sort of cut these up so I can get the outer edge bit, then cut off all those good old nibbly knobbly bits. There's a word I've not said for ages. So yeah, nibbly knobbly bits come off, and then we keep them longer edges, and then these centre sort of bits I basically just chop up into smaller bits. And the size of these, well, they can be any size really. The main sort of size I go for is a size that can fit inside the jar that I've just sort of had. So if you've got a jar with a large opening, you can have larger bits, and obviously if the jar's got a smaller opening, smaller bits. Quite simple really. Yeah, get all the bits cut up, stick them in the jar, and then generally, as a rule of thumb, around about 7-8 hours is kind of the minimum you need to leave these. And then after the 7-8 hours, they are all fully dissolved, and yeah, turned into ooey gooey sprue stuff that we can use later. So the reason I've done this bit first is, I say, obviously that takes 7-8 hours or thereabouts. So while that's doing that, I can grab all these longer length bits I've got. Obviously quite a few of these still got nibbly knobbly bits, so we're going to chop them off. But again, obviously all these nibbly knobbly bits, they go into a little box, and yeah, they go back in that jar of acetone to be turned into ooey gooey sprue stuff. So yeah, nothing gets wasted here, which is pretty cool. So we get all these long lengths. Don't have to be too neat with these. Sometimes in the past I have sanded them down, but in this case there was no need to. To make sure we make the dice tower the right size, obviously we need some dice. So I'm using these ones that were sent to me by Easy Roller. Awesome dice, they've sent me quite a few in the past, so I've got quite a few sets, all varieties, and you see these ones here, I've got some metal ones and some stone ones, oh, and a whole variety of plastic ones. So I'm going to leave a link in the description, guys, to where you can get these dice from. Yeah, go check them out, because they really do have a whole variety of different types of dice, which is pretty awesome. As you can see, I've drawn out a rough shape on this greaseproof paper. In a minute it'll become apparent why I've done it on the greaseproof paper. And yeah, basically it's obviously the main thing with these kind of builds is to get a good framework going. And there's no sort of exception here. I'm going to build a framework first and then basically sort of fill it in. So yeah, I've got my rough plan at the bottom. There's just a case of gluing it all together. I am using a combination of obviously the cement glue, but then I do go on then to use some normal sort of super glue, just because it is a bit quicker. But the other thing I'm going to do here, which is something I've never done before, but seemed like a good idea at the time, all these panels that I'm making, I'm basically going to fill them in with a hot glue gun. Part of the reason for this is obviously it'll give it some nice strength and support, and it just seemed a great way of filling it in. And then obviously then I can just attach my ooey gooey sprue stuff when I roll it out into some panels. That'll have something good to sort of like adhere to and glue to. So yeah, I say it dries really quick. The hot glue gun stuff is relatively cheap, again from Amazon, like everything else I buy. And yeah, say I've never done it before, but it just seemed a great way of filling in the framework supports, and it does make it a whole lot stronger, which is pretty cool. So it's basically just a case of cutting the sprues to the right length. Obviously I'm making sure they're all the same sort of length. No real need to measure these out, just make one and then cut the rest to that sort of size. And yeah, so I've glued them all together, again using the greaseproof paper just because it's easy to sort of pull them off of that. And then yeah, I'm going to basically glue in the centre bits for all of these. Again, just because when the first one I did, it came out really well. It's nice and support, plenty of strength in it. So I thought, yeah, I'll do the same to all the panels that are going to go up the side and the back of this dice tower. And again, as well as the strength and support it gives, it also makes it easier for me to then sort of glue on all the panels that I'm going to make out of the ooey gooey sprue stuff, which is pretty cool. While I am gluing in all the panels and then gluing the bits all together, I just want to say a big thank you to all my patrons for helping support the channel. It really means so much to me, as it means I can continue to buy bits and pieces to obviously keep making videos, which is awesome. If you want to help support the channel and see some behind the scenes sort of photos, videos and all that kind of stuff of what I'm currently working on before it comes on YouTube, there's a link down below and there will be a link at the end of the video on how you can become a patron and help support me so I can continue to make these videos. I also want to thank Artiscapade, Easy Roller Dice and Any Cubic, who also help sponsor the channel, as well as send me things to help me make these kind of videos. So cheers guys! So making the panels in sections really is making it nice and easy to assemble this all in one sort of go. So yes, I think I'm going to be doing this more often, doing the old glue in between the panels. As I say, it certainly does add a lot of strength, support, and it will make it a lot easier later on when I come to glue things onto it. So yeah, there we go, looking pretty good. And now the ooey gooey sprue stuff has all sort of dissolved. I can now have a go at making some panels, because obviously once I make the panels, again I need to leave that for another sort of 7-8 hours at least before I can start using them. So yeah, we'll get some panels rolled out and then I can get back to building the framework. So with the panels, I mean, if you are new to my channel and haven't seen me do this before, it is just a case of taking the ooey gooey sprue stuff out, put it between 2 sheets of greaseproof paper and then rolling it out. So the roller I use has different sort of thickness edges that you can put on it. I'm using the lowest one because I want my panels nice and thin, but there are different edges I can put on this roller just to make the panels sort of 6mm deep, 10mm deep. But obviously the thicker they are, the longer they take to dry. So yeah, that's why I generally go with the sort of the 1mm sort of size. As well as having the smooth panels that I'm going to make, I'm also going to make some sort of like corrugated panels. And this is something that I made for, well, a previous video. So you'll have to go and check that out, guys, if you want to see how I made this sort of mould for that. And yeah, it's a case of trying to get the ooey gooey sprue stuff into it. Obviously it does sort of stick to, well, pretty much everything it touches. But yeah, again, good old greaseproof paper, because obviously this is the thing that it doesn't sort of stick to. And then just manipulating it into position, and then we can just use the roller to sort of fully roll it out and basically sort of squish it into position. Yeah, so nice and simple. And again, this ooey gooey sprue stuff, if you are new to my channel and haven't seen some of the other stuff I've made, yeah, you really do need to go and check them out as well, all the other videos, because you really can make, well, I believe, pretty much anything out of sprues, whether it's the sprues as they are, or turn them to ooey gooey sprue stuff, and say making these kind of panels. So these ones are kind of rushed, as in the goo, or the ooey gooey sprue stuff, I think I'd only left about 6 hours, so it wasn't fully sort of dissolved. Again, I kind of rushed it because of the thing I'm making, it doesn't need to be perfect. And sometimes when you are making things, especially when they're orc related, imperfections kind of make it look a bit better. So yeah, so these panels, I hadn't left the goo long enough, so that's why they are quite sort of holy. And also, normally I leave the panels a lot longer before using them. Again, I didn't leave these as long enough, so yeah, so they're going to have imperfections and holes, and basically they're going to look really good for like an orc tower. So it's a case of filling in the last sort of few bits with the hot glue gun. I think in total I may have used, I think, about 4 sticks of glue. And I say, this glue really is cheap, so it's a great way of filling in these panels. And yeah, it's cheap, and yeah, I like it when it's cheap and cheerful and easy to do. So that's the framework all done, all dried. So obviously the glue dries really quick. I mean, we're talking sort of 5 minutes and then it's ready to do stuff with. And yeah, so obviously as the dice get put into the top, they're going to hit several little levels. That obviously helps spin the dice around, just so the dice are nice and random and shaken up. So all I need to do now is obviously put some sort of supports in the centre bit, as well as obviously increasing the height at the bottom, just so when the dice do sort of pop out the bottom, they don't sort of obviously fly out and obviously sort of land on the desk or knock figures over. So again, more of the sprues in the long lengths, just a case of simply gluing them around the outside. Again, this doesn't need to be too neat, as we are going to put some panels all around this, as well as obviously adding on sort of kind of like teeth at the front, because I'm going to be sticking on a big orc sort of face, yeah, over the front of this basically. I've also glued in some supports in the centre column bit, and now it's just a case of cutting up the flattened sprues into some, well, sort of panel sort of shapes. Again, the great thing about using these is they are nice and thin, and I can just cut them using a normal pair of scissors, which is pretty cool. I say you can get these a lot flatter and a lot neater. You do need to take more time over doing it, but again, because I'm using them for like an orc build, sometimes the imperfections do look better, because obviously that's kind of how orcs, well, they build things out of junk really, don't they? So yeah, the less neater it looks, the more orcified I think it looks, which is why I kind of like making orc buildings, I guess, because it can be a bit slap happy and not as neat as it needs to be really. Once the panels are cut up, it's simply a case of gluing them in. As you can probably see from this, this panel hasn't quite fully dried, so it is still quite flexible, which is kind of good at the moment, because obviously it means it will fit in nicely to wherever I'm putting it, because it is still relatively soft. So the next thing to do is to cut up all these panels into small little bits, as basically these are going to be covering the whole of the dice tower, just to make it look like the orcs obviously have made this or constructed this out of basically any bits and pieces they could find. So yeah, so basically these are just random little bits and pieces cut up, and then we're also going to sort of get some rivets as well, just to make it look like obviously these panels have all been riveted together. But I'll show you how to make the rivets in just a second. The corrugated sprue panel has come out really well as too, and again this also just needs trimming down. Again, I have made these before where they have been super great and obviously no imperfections, but in this case, again, I didn't mind them having all these little dots and dents, as that looks like they are worn and torn and basically they've been sort of shot up. Just before I do cover this all in the panels, let's get some dice and make sure they obviously go down okay. Yeah, so obviously they are going down, obviously they are sort of still flying out, but that's fine because I haven't put any more panels around the bottom yet. It was more just a case of make sure the dice don't get stuck as they go down. And yeah, it's another little fun bit, obviously getting all these panels and just randomly sticking them here, there and everywhere. So yeah, no real organisation to this, just get them on, get them anywhere really. As this is obviously an orc build, I wanted to have a huge big orc face on it. And again, because I like so much using the glue to make sort of like a, well, to make a panel really, I thought I'd do exactly the same with the big orc face. I didn't use any sprues to make any sort of surround to this. As you can see, basically I just drew out what I wanted on some greaseproof paper and then just sort of glued around the edges and then filled it in. Again, I've not done this thing before, and yeah, I like trying new things, as you guys all know, so I thought I'd give this a go, and yeah, I think it works really, really well, and this is definitely something I'm going to be doing more in the future, just because again, it makes a nice easy panels, strengthens any sort of sprue supports that I'm making, and yeah, nice and quick, cheap and easy. Go try it, guys. It also literally dries within about 5-10 minutes and then it's ready to use. So I've got the rough sort of shape here. I was going to trim up some of the edges because obviously where the glue's kind of like spilled out, it's not sharp edges, but I mean it doesn't really matter to be honest, because this is going to still be covered in some more sprue panels. But yeah, I thought I'd have a little bit of a go at just sort of tidying up some of the edges. And then it's ready to stick on the front of the dice tower. So yeah, a few minutes later, and obviously I've covered that in sort of more sort of panels, made some obviously nice sharp teeth, and I'm going to have a little area at the top where I'm going to have it so you can obviously put some figures. So even though this is obviously going to be like a an orc dice tower, I guess you could obviously use this in any of the builds or any of the games you play as well as a tower, bit of terrain. So it's pretty multifunctional, which is pretty cool. Yeah, use it for dice and use it as some sort of terrain for your characters to sort of move around, or even sort of like say in this case they can sit at the top and get the old sniper up there and they can take out any foes that are down below. Okay, so now it's time to make those rivets that I was mentioning earlier, and these are incredibly simple to make. It's just a case of getting one of your sprue panels, getting a little hole punch, and, well, punching holes, but obviously it's not the holes we want, it's the bits that come out from the holes. And it's these perfect size rivets for this sort of build. And yeah, it's just a case of then gluing them all over, generally on edges or corners of panels. But yeah, I mean, because this is built by an orc, it doesn't need to really make too much sense, and you could really put these wherever you wanted. And there we go, one finished Ork Dice Tower. Yeah, ready for painting. As I say, I'm really pleased with how this has come out, and this is definitely something that I will be using, well, to play any kind of tabletop games. Probably more Dungeons and Dragons than anything else, but I will eventually be getting myself a Warhammer army. I just don't know when. So yeah, sprayed it all in black, and then basically going to go over and give it some sort of like highlights, dry brushing with silver, just because I really like the look of this. It gives it a nice sort of metal look, but it's not obviously too shiny. So I did that all over to it, but obviously then I wanted to make sure that the face stood out, or the orc face stood out. So I painted that green, did a couple of different varieties of green, and then basically went over the whole thing with some rust wash. And yeah, there it is. So I'm really pleased with how this looks, and it's definitely functional in a couple of ways. Obviously for my little lonely orc up there, and the dice, which yeah, roll down perfectly. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. It would be great if you could give it a like, leave some comments down below, and share wherever possible, as this really will help the channel out so much. Don't forget there's a variety of links down below that are affiliate links that again help the channel out but don't cost you anything, so go give those a click, guys. If you are new, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, as I do make videos each week. Okay guys, that's it. Bye for now.